Well, thank you so much, Leanne and Jasara, for joining me today. Really, really interesting stuff that you're building and have built, and kind of want to dive into a lot of it. Let's start by just talking about the idea of sort of Cool Points Club and sort of the ideation of it. I guess what was that journey to even think about this, right, and actually start it?
So Grant, it really all started when I had my son Oscar. He's 2.5 now, so it's a wee while ago now. But I think coupled with a little bit too little sleep and a climate documentary called actually it was called 10 billion. I remember it distinctly.
Okay,
And it
okay.
talks about the population of the world reaching 10 billion. And basically, it's not a good story, right? And it kind of woke me up. I just, I was probably what I'd say is like everyone else. You're aware of the climate crisis and you do your little part. You recycle, you do what you can, but that's sort of the extent of it. The rest is kind of like left to someone else will kind of fix it. And I guess having a kid changes the outlook that you have on the planet for the next 100 years. All of a sudden it's become a whole lot more important what's happening. Even after the years that you might not be here. And I started to do the whole thing, got a worm farm, sold one of our cars, bought secondhand clothing, changing lifestyle, but it felt not really like it was much. So I, wasn't really getting anywhere. So I started to look into that, went down a bit of a rabbit hole there, and quickly sort of found out that, tackling this individual footprint that we have is really an inefficient use of our time. And at the same time, Jasira is a very good friend of mine. We've been friends for many years, playing football and all sorts of sports together as we grew up. And we've always bandied around ideas. We were sort of always cooking up, creating things, thinking of stuff that we could do. And actually, she texted me on one of these days that I was thinking about it, thinking, what are we going to do here? We have to do something. She texted me saying, right, let's do something. Let's get something actually going. And I said, well, great, because I've got an idea. Here we go. And it all really started out with just trying to make solutions cool, essentially. Like
Right,
we wanted to
right.
get rid of, and Sarah can talk to this better, but that narrative of the doom, gloom, blame, shame story that surrounds this space is actually something we just thought is so demotivating. It doesn't appeal to us, and that others must feel like that too. And then when we started to get into the nitty gritty of it, it really was also taking away from not, and this is a little bit controversial to say, but forget measuring your individual footprint and trying to work at that. Let's just weave in ways. Let's start. Let's do something rather than nothing. And let's start making it easy. That's where we really got to. And I don't know if Jasira, you want to add any more, because there's definitely your side of the story,
Yeah, coming at it from a different angle to Leanne, for me, working in creative industries, we work in a lot of brands that are just about profit, profit, profit. And as we've shifted into a more purposeful era, I found that brands were wanting to put purpose and putting the environment, putting inclusivity and diversity at their forefront. Yet the reality is it's all a bit of a facade. And I think
Mm,
Leanne and I talked a lot about there's just so much stuff out there that says it's something that it's not. And for us, when it came back to the climate, it was so like, how do we demystify all of that? How do we make it feel like more attainable to the everyday person to actually do something positive? And we joke saying, do something positive without becoming vegan, I think was kind of our
Mm.
mantra. And that's
mhm,
where
mhm.
we came to, was about, let's try and make climate action mainstream. So mainstream, in fact, that maybe you don't even know you're taking part.
Right,
It
right.
should be something that can happen every single day without us necessarily having to make drastic changes to our lives.
And I think it's also great what you've built is it's that ease of use, right? Where you're not disrupting lifestyle. Because I think
Mm.
a lot of
Mm.
what we hear is sort of the doom and gloom thing. But when
Mm-hmm.
you come to a person, like you said, that maybe has a small family and is trying to work on their career, like all of a
Mm.
sudden come in and say, okay, change your complete lifestyle. Everything you're doing is wrong. You're a terrible
Mm-hmm.
person, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
not going to get anywhere, right? That's an
No.
immediate disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's a terrible starter for for trying to build
Anything. Yeah.
anything,
Yeah.
right? Let alone like a very complex issue that like takes some time for, education and understanding like why these things are beneficial, right? I think that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
also a
Yeah.
big part of this. So I want to concentrate on maybe the two. I know there's a few initiatives with the Cool Points Club, but let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about two. One would be sort of the coolgram aspect of leveraging Instagram for things, and then the other one is Island of Cool that really integrates Web3 with NFTs. Let's get at the coolgram part of it first. Tell me how that works? Because it's really interesting.
So really, we came up with that purely like what we just talked about, right? Like, as in, there's so many people using Instagram.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
use it all, a lot of us use it, probably too much per the day. And we wanted to show people that climate action doesn't have to be giving up or changing your lifestyle. It can be weaved in. So it can be something that we're already doing, a lot of, and that we actually enjoy doing. So really, that was where we started with that. What is it that we're all doing that we love doing,
Mhm.
but this could actually be made into climate action, or as we like to say, make it cool. What we did with that is, and actually the kind of mechanics of how it works is, we simply take the measurement, or the carbon footprint measurement of using your Instagram account. We measure that per minute. So, we don't measure it, but there's lots of studies and data out there about what it takes to operate the systems in terms of an energy need, essentially. And then what you get is a per minute carbon footprint. We just extrapolated that out for the 24 hours in the day, and then added a 20% buffer. So basically, even if you were on your Instagram scrolling and posting all day, you'd still make your Instagram account carbon negative by subscribing to our service.
And that goes to what exactly, right? What is it actually
Yeah, that's a
going
good
to?
question. Yeah, so Cool Points Club as a whole, everything we do, we are purely set up to fund emerging technologies in the
Mm.
carbon removal space. So this is not planting trees necessarily, or nature-based solutions. We're really looking at these emerging technologies that sit in this space that we need as a species, for these to come off if we are going to be able to hit our targets that the IPCC require. So this is things like biochar, direct air capture, mineralization, marine permaculture, and then a whole bunch more. But the cool thing about this space is, like, we need them, but they do
Right.
exist. The problem with them is they're just super expensive at this point in time, because they're new
Right.
technology.
Yep.
And like all new technology, if it takes its time for the market to kind of finally realize, then the price can, people do start to use it, the price comes down because the technology can, get better, and, and things can scale, but they won't happen quickly or at the speed we need them to, unless we start putting money that way quickly. Like, other companies behind this, where we saw it first happening and what kind of inspired us, is the likes of Stripe, Shopify, Microsoft, and they're really doing exactly the same thing, buying this stuff at what is a higher price per ton compared to, say, traditional tree planting.
Right.
But the difference is that you're going to scale these technologies, which we
Right.
absolutely need. Two, most of these things are really high quality carbon credits, so you get high permanence. In other words, some of this stuff will go forever, if not thousands of years. So compared that to, say, other things, which again we still need, we need all of them. We need reforestation and all that sort of stuff too. But we chose really to focus this in where money isn't already kind of heading, and scale these projects up.
Do you want to add something, Jasar?
I was going to say not so much about the actual carbon removal itself, but around the origins of Coolgram. I think Leanne and I, both being based in different cities and different countries, were quite conscious early on that we would be creating this digital footprint that we kind of wanted to address. So everything we do, from emails, our websites, all of our digital interactions, we offset as a business. And a big part of what we were wanting to do as a launch, to get out there and get Cool Points out there, was to run physical activations.
Right.
Obviously with COVID, sort of limited what we could do in that space. So we thought, well, hang on, like, we've worked out and we've done the maths as to what your digital footprint might start to look like. And so how could we package that up to a user to say, hey, for X amount of dollars, you can offset your usage on this social media channel. And what we've found is actually quite an important conversation starter around, yes, everything you do has a footprint of sorts, at varying scales. And so I think it's even just educating people around, the actions that you take do have a carbon consequence.
Is there a verified organization or someone you go to find the projects to finance and to sort of fund?
We mainly buy at the moment off a marketplace called Causeartist, and they specifically deal in carbon removal projects. But they actually, at this stage, they really just have to focus on biochar product, and they've just bought on a soil carbon credit think. Actually, I think it's brand new, and so we buy a lot through them because they have third-party verification and going through. Other ones we do directly, and for them we've used, like I said, Stripe and
Hmm.
Stripe, Shopify have come to this space. Stripe particularly have been extremely amazing, and everything's
Yep.
open source, right? So they've done a lot of auditing, and they put all the people that they support, the impact partners that they support through, really tough criteria verification process. So anything that we go do directly comes straight from them. So that's what they're supporting. So we just basically piggyback that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the ability to put them through
Yeah.
that with being a startup. So that's where we're focused at the moment. And again, the verification process around carbon removals is really quite limited. There's this one marketplace, Puro, that's really operating in this space and sort of leading there. But you'll find that this is all so new that it's
Yeah.
not like forestry, for example.
Stripe Climate does a great job, and using them for a while just through Causeartist, right? So just 1% of all the revenue that we get at Causeartist, that goes to Stripe Climate because I
Right.
use Stripe
Yep.
to process the payments.
Yep.
But it's
Yep.
an easy
Yep.
way for businesses to, like you said, just like
Correct. Yep.
the Cool
Just
Gram is an easy way for consumers or business to get involved. Like
yep.
just your processing fees, right? Like just there's sort of these little bitty bricks you can do across your business that can give back or fund actually products
Absolutely.
that are
Yep.
companies that are scaling, right? I think that's
Yep.
the important factor in all this. I
Mm-hmm.
want to kind of chat about so Coolgram is, I think, a bit easier to digest, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Sort of offset. I think it's like $5 a month, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, $5 a month. Yeah, well, 60 a year. But yeah, exactly
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Now, Island of Cool is something a bit different, right? And
Yep.
much more. I like maybe we'll dive in a little deeper here on that because it's a really, really cool concept. But I think it might be a little bit more intricate in how the offsetting works through the NFTs and the trading and all
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
let's give us just the overview of Island of Cool and like what it is and sort of what it does and maybe the overall vision for it.
Yeah, so Islands of Cool is actually what we're doing here. The mission is pretty simple. We just want to build a digital place that has environmental significance for our real world. And I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but if you can think of it like a carbon sink that exists in a physical world, we want to effectively create that in a digital sense. And we're using art and NFTs to create that space. The how we get into it is really harnessing the NFT technology, right? So upon mint, that prompts us to remove carbon, and this is all just by using funds and how we work them and which wallets they go to, etc. And then of course these NFTs that we create them as what we call digital carbon sponges, and they all have royalties amongst them that obviously go to more carbon removal. As these things are bought, sold, and traded, the impact continues. So the aim is to use art here to build what we call Islands of Cool, this digital space, and really have that place acting as as a proper impact for our physical world.
And so I think is there 100? Is there 100
Yeah,
technically like plots of land like or
yeah. So
NFTs?
Island One is our first island, and what we did with that is one piece of art, and we've actually broken that into 100 smaller pieces, and we are selling those off at $1,000 per piece, and that is effectively our earliest investors in the project, that people that get this and want to see it grow and take off as well. I like to call them that they've jumped on the crazy bus with us because it is a bit of a mad plan, but nothing great was ever planned if you were just being boring, right? So we've managed to sell, what are we now, 52 of these plots already. So we've got 48 to go. And so this is Island One. This is just the first piece of what we call the map, and we expect to grow out that map and also introduce different collections along the way. We've got next on the roadmap is like our version of a PFP, not a PFP, but you'll have to wait and see for more details. So we like to kind of take the space and get creative with what's going on here, because it's you look at what part of these PFP projects and stuff like that have achieved in terms of just revenues over the
Right.
last 9-10 months. It's eye-watering stuff, right? And not everything can be like that, and you can't always be a bored ape, nor do we necessarily want to be, but
Sure.
we think that there is some power there that we can harness, that financially to really become potentially the biggest carbon removal project ever.
Yep.
In terms of funds, this could be bigger than your X Prize, Elon Musk's X Prize, $100 million X Prize. So yeah, that's where we saw what was attractive about this and getting into this space is that, it is possible to generate a lot of funds. And if, these things are programmed to do that job, no one can interfere with that. There's not a wildfire that can stop this, this carbon ain't coming back. And yeah, we just really liked that concept and again, bringing art into it.
So when somebody buys it, and just to be clear, you would have to have Sol for this, right? So it's equivalent to USD, but they would need to hook up a wallet, a crypto wallet to buy.
Yeah, you do need a wallet to receive the NFT, right? So, but we've made it super easy for what we really want to do, and I think really what the space what we're working in is probably your non-savvy crypto user, i.e. they might know what it is, but they probably aren't prepared or set up to go. It's certainly not Solana. Maybe people are on ETH, but for obvious reasons, just with energy efficiency, we didn't go on ETH. So what we've tried to do is make it super easy. So we do actually have a credit card payment set up as well.
When a person buys, let's say buys one, right? Like buys let's say like an acre or whatever you want to call it, like a plot of land,
a piece,
right?
Yep.
A piece, yes. Does that initial purchase do anything, or does it have to then be traded for the offset to sort of happen, right?
Yeah, got you. Yeah, no, so each piece is 1 ton. 1 ton of biochar, and then any royalties that come from any secondary trading, which obviously we won't open up until we've completed minting, but any royalties that come from that will go into more projects. And again, like I said right at the start, our plan is to really support all of the emerging technologies in this space. So what we will end up is having this portfolio. So it may not go back to more biochar, but it also may, but it could be any of the other emerging technologies that I sort of said before as well.
And I want to get Jasara's take on this, because I think building this and designing it, I mean, it's beautifully done from an aesthetic standpoint, from the design, just from the copy. Like there's a real sort of pop to it, right? Which is amazing for this, early stage project. But I guess walk us through really figuring out like the design and to the copy to try to help people, understand what this could possibly be. It's just really well done. So I guess walk us through sort of the stage of actually building it and creating the brand essentially.
Yeah, I guess Leanne and I are both the biggest NFT purchasers. We're very new in the space, and so we've come at it from much more of a storytelling and branding perspective around what if there was this island or series of islands floating in the middle of the ocean, maybe on this island of plastic that we hear about and we see photos of. What would happen if this was just left to grow and evolve and have its own inhabitants and things like that? So our imagination kind of started there of like, what if we had this like imaginary or fantasy space that could fundamentally be drawing down carbon from our real world? So that's kind of, I guess, the idea. And then from there, we then sort of built out this idea of these islands. So from a website perspective and a branding perspective, we very much wanted to build out something that felt a bit more like a travel blog or a travel magazine.
Yeah.
Where, the goal would be like, what's the temperature today on Island 1 and what language is spoken? And we sort of, Leanne alluded to our next drop, which might be more around our inhabitants. And sort of start to tell that story. And it also just gives us a good platform. As a startup, we're evolving constantly to give us a bit more of an organic platform as well that doesn't just speak to NFT and crypto natives. We wanted to tell a story about what we're trying to achieve to get people on board for the bigger vision, rather than buy these NFTs and you will be able to trade them in a short period of time for cash. That's not kind of what we're trying to build. So everything we comes back to how do we make our projects available and accessible to anyone? And granted, our first drop maybe isn't that accessible financially to anyone, but our goal would be that as we continue to grow, that we'll have the ability to get more people on board and involved in these projects.
I kind of want to talk about maybe we'll end here on sort of the big vision, right? I know that's kind of difficult to talk about the future and like the vision, because it's very dynamic space and things move kind of quickly and fast. But the idea of having more sort of, right, islands and having more and more available, like, I guess what's possible here would be the question, right? And maybe what do you look at success being?
I think, well, when you ask what's possible, it'd be easy to answer what's not possible, right? Truly, the space, and a big part of this is we don't know where this will end up, and we quite openly say that on the on our website, is that this is going to be a journey. We don't know where we can get this to. We want it to be the biggest thing ever, as in in terms of a digital carbon sink. This could be super important to our planet. This place that we're growing, and that is the vision, and that is the plan to be able to actually create that. What we do see, I guess, is as we grow this out, is what we hope is a lot of collaboration in terms of maybe bringing in brand partners to build
Yeah.
future islands with us. We
Yep.
obviously want artists to step up and take part in this. People that we think can add to this with their brands that they've built, bring their people along. That's what we see as being really important to at least succeeding in the short term anyway. Sarah, would that be fair? Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say we come back to our slogan of reimagining climate action. I think we
Yeah.
like to think we can reimagine everything we do,
Yeah.
including the NFT space. We sort of look at what everyone else is doing and think, there's so many players in the space now. Why don't we do it a bit differently? And so even today, talking about our second and third drops, it's like, well, actually, let's just go against the norm almost, because for us, it's not just about having a big Bored Ape Yacht Club where it's kind of an exclusive community for the elite. We want to continue to have opportunities that we can tap into that community, but also bring in our own community and engage people that aren't necessarily in the space. So for us, it's that constant challenge of how do we rethink what the current norms or current trends are to become more and more inclusive for everyone.
Really, really amazing stuff. Look, I know we're early in all this stuff, but the more and more I dig into it, the more and more I learn, and the more I figure out. And I think the more and more people, do that, and maybe not look at like the value of a certain coin or the value of a certain NFT, and actually look at what the rails are, like what's being built and what's possible. I think much like creative people will continue to come in this space and look at what can I build here? Right? Not like what can I sell? Like, look, at the end of the day, if you're good at what you do, you design cool stuff, like the money part will come, right? Like,
Of course.
that'll just happen, right? But I think when more people kind of understand what you can do with this playing field from a creative standpoint, like creatives are going to do incredible things. Builders are going to do incredible things. And I just think it's just going to take some time, just like anything, right? I mean, the internet took 20 years, right? I mean, there's still people learning how to use that, right? So this will be a process, but I think it's just the early stages of like what I see. I'm sure obviously you see it as well, is really interesting. And obviously there's the Bored Ape Yacht Club. There's these things that go viral, right? And kind of take away a lot of the spotlight from some of the different projects that are doing day-to-day, like real work in the real world. And this is why I love this, is because it takes the Web3 and the NFTs and all that goes with that, but actually does something in the real world. And that's what I'm fascinated about, is how do we blend both of these worlds together? So
and
thanks so much,
and get one to work for the other, right? Like
we're seeing that it can, right? It's just figuring out the creative ways to do it.
Exactly, right. We've got the chance to build it now. Like we're staring at the future here. And I think that's really the allure here, is that we actually have the chance to structure this so it can help us with our problems. If we do it right. And if we do it right from the beginning, even better. And that's exactly it.
Well, thank you so much again for taking the time. Best of luck for the next, decades to come with this, and just, continued success. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much, Grant. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks everybody for listening to the episode. Just want to give a quick shout out to the Causeartist partners, everyone who has signed up for it. Truly appreciate it. I will list a link in below so you can check them out. If you want to become a partner, just go to causeartist.com/partners. We'll talk soon. Thanks. Bye.